What's up everyone and welcome to this video. I apologize for the audio in the tree video. For some reason it wasn't picking up everything that I was saying as well as I thought it was. I think it's probably because I didn't have the mic close enough, which would make sense. So I'm trying to have like the mic literally like right by my mouth, which I was trying to avoid somewhat for aesthetic reasons, but I just don't think that I'm able to fully amplify the volume from where I had it. So like I'm always saying, I know it's probably like, repeating record at this point, but I'm still doing everything from the ground up and just kind of, finding my way as I figure out everything. So over time, maybe the background will look a little better. See, I got my Nuka-Cola poster up that I've had for a couple years now. Finally got around to setting it up. And yeah, so things are going to improve. I would like to be able to do a podcast of sorts, but it's I guess not the easiest time right now to get people for a podcast. But you know how it is. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this video. I should say this article. I thought this was pretty awesome. The archaeologyworld.com has a list for their top 10 archaeological discoveries of 2020. And I think the number one is spot on. I think I would agree with that. And there was another one that I thought should have been a little bit higher on the list, but it's still a very important discovery, and we'll take a look at that as well. I'll mention it when we get there. All right, so here's a list of the top 10 archaeological discoveries of 2020. Archaeology is the closest thing we have to a time machine. Instead of using flux capacitors, it would be pretty cool if we could use flux capacitors. No joke, I was actually thinking about flux capacitors the other day. So my air conditioner went out and I had to get that fixed, and the air conditioning guy was talking about the capacitor, and went to Back to the Future thinking about flux capacitors. However, archaeologists rely on technology like ground-penetrating radar, scanning electron microscopes, DNA sequencing, and of course, the good old-fashioned shovel. Equipped with the right tools and techniques, the work of these scientists allows us to reconstruct the past and imagine things as they once were. Years from now, when we look back on the year that was 2020, archaeology won't be the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah, it's probably going to be the pandemic. I think we can all agree on that. But that's not to say it wasn't a good year for this important scientific discipline. Here is a list of the 10 most prominent archaeological discoveries to hit the headlines in 2020. Number 10. Melting ice reveals a Viking mountain pass. Melting ice reveals a lost Viking-era highway in Norway's mountains. As the glaciers of Scandinavia melt, the long-forgotten journeys of intrepid Vikings are revealed. Reported in the journal Antiquity Today, a retreating Lendbreen Glacier in the mountains of Norway has recently revealed a mountain pass used by Vikings over 1,000 years ago, along with a treasure trove. And you know what I think I'm going to start doing is I don't think I've actually had the links to these articles in my videos, so I'll start putting those in there if I remember. That way you can go and check out the links yourself. Like if you want to go to these various articles that are within the article itself, you can. The oldest Maya temple. Mexico, 3,000-year-old Mayan ceremonial complex discovered in Tabasco and the latest breakthrough discovery of lost civilization. Researchers have found the largest and the oldest Mayan site through a unique laser technology called LIDAR. Using the aerial remote sensing method, researchers at the University of Arizona found a colossal rectangular elevated platform that was built between 1,000. Let's take a look at that. This is what they had before. 1,800 BC in Tabasco State, Mexico. Very cool. The new structure is located at the site called Aguada Phoenix that lies near the border of Guatemala. Which in its total volume exceeds the 1,500-year-old Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. Or Giza, I should say. Yeah, this is pretty cool. Excavations of the oldest and largest Maya ceremonial structure in earth and animal sculpture, possibly representing a white-lipped peccary or coatimundi that the researchers nicknamed Choco. Cool. Number 8. 11,000-year-old mine in underwater cave surprises archaeologists. 11,000-year-old mine in the underwater cave found by archaeologists Paleo-Indian Elk mining has been found by divers in 3 underwater caves near Acumal on the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. From the Maya era, the caves were a source of mineral and pigment, but they were long preceded by mining activity. Interesting. And number 7, an Anglo-Saxon cemetery with 200 graves. Like so, 200 graves in this particular cemetery. Anglo-Saxon cemetery excavated in the east of England. BBC News reports that an Anglo-Saxon cemetery that may date to the 6th century AD has been found at a site slated for residential development in the east of England, within the border of the Kingdom of the East Angles. Brooches, pottery, small iron knives, wrist clasps, and more. Wow. An ancient string sheds light on Neanderthal life. I think they meant that to be numbers. No, maybe not. It looked like a white splotch on the underside of a Neanderthal stone tool, but a microscope showed it was a bunch of fibers twisted around each other. Further examination reveals it was the first direct evidence that Neanderthals can make string, and the oldest known direct evidence for string making overall, researchers say. The find implies their evolutionary cousins had some understanding of numbers in the trees that furnished the raw material. It's the latest discovery to show that Neanderthals were smarter than modern day people often assume. Yeah, I think oftentimes, like, even Neanderthals aside, like, we have this idea that peasants in medieval Europe were, like, just not sophisticated at all, or that cavemen, Neanderthals were like these primitive brutes. And I'm sure, like, by today's standards, in many respects, they were. But, Homo sapiens 80, 100,000 years ago were still Homo sapiens. They still had the same drives, the same feelings and emotions. I'm sure they had different rules and laws and customs and etc. But, they were still people. I don't think there was. I think there's probably been cycles of civilization. I think there was probably a point in time when cavemen were actually pretty sophisticated. So I think, if you ever seen that documentary, The Cave of Forgotten Dreams, it would say, I forget the name of the cave, but there's a cave in France that was covered during a mudslide or something for like thousands of years, and then the mudslide revealed the cave. But it was blocked off for so long that everything was so well preserved that, they actually blocked the cave to prevent further contamination of the site. But they actually found like bones that were still well preserved. They even found, I believe, non-fossilized footprints in the sand. And there were little toddler footprints going through the dirt and wolf tracks behind the toddler. So you might think that the wolf was stalking the kid, but it actually seems like it might also be the first time or one of the earlier instances of wolves becoming domesticated with humans. So it's an awesome documentary, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's really, really good. Very fascinating. A bizarre circular structure discovered near Stonehenge. Massive prehistoric monument detected near Stonehenge, 2 miles from Stonehenge. A series of ancient shafts excavated thousands of years ago have been found. It was excavated thousands of years ago? Analysis of the 20 or more shafts suggests the features are Neolithic and excavated more than 4,500 years ago, around the time the nearby ancient summit of Durrington Walls was built. Let's take a look at that. Yellow dots mark the location of the finds, with Durrington Walls marked as the large brown circle in Stonehenge, top left. It's pretty cool. Yeah, this is one that I thought should have been maybe a little higher on the list. I don't know. Probably a little biased because I just think cavemen and mammoth stuff is cool. But check this out. An Ice Age structure made from the bones of 60 mammoths. A mysterious 25,000-year-old structure built of the bones of 60 mammoths, mysterious bone circles. Consisting of hundreds of mammoth bones, help scientists understand how people survived the last Ice Age. Yeah, some of these articles are a little discombobulated in their wording. According to a new analysis, the bones at one location in Russia were more than 20,000 years old. I think I saw something. It might have been that Cave of Forgotten Dreams, or it might have been something else. I can't really remember. But I saw something that said that these cavemen were living in the same cave for I think it was something ridiculous, like 200,000 years. I mean, it might have been 20,000 years. I might be getting the zero off there, but yeah, like, can you imagine the length of time that occurred? Sometimes I just think about the fact that the United States has only been around for a little over 200 years, where like the Romans, their empire lasted like I think it was 1,000 years. Don't quote me on that, but it's just amazing the extent of history and like the small percentage of time that we're a part of it. It's pretty wild. This is cool. I think I would have switched these around, the mammoth and the Peruvian cat, but still, this is pretty cool. A giant cat reappears in Peru after 2,000 years. Large 2,000-year-old cat discovered in Peru's Nazca-lined southern Peru's dunes. Carved with the geoglyphs of a hummingbird, a monkey, and an orca figure, some would dearly love to believe it's an astronaut. I gotta try to read these a little bit better. Have now revealed the form of an enormous cat lounging across a desert hillside during the work to increase access. Yeah, let's check this out. I don't see where that part of the article continued. Yeah, that's pretty wild, that they made all this stuff that long ago. Number 3, a mummy cache, or a cache. Nearly 100 coffins buried over 2,500 years ago found in Europe. Egypt, not Europe. On 14th of November, Egyptian antiquities officials declared the discovery. Some of the coffins had mummies inside them, the officials said. Archaeologists discovered as many as 13 coffins from a burial ground in Egypt back in September. Yeah, let's see how long that was sealed for. $2,500 years. Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. I thought this was pretty cool. Number 2, a buried female hunter appends beliefs about prehistoric gender roles. 9,000-year-old remains of a female hunter found in Peru, discovered at the Andean highland site of Willamaya Pachca in Peru, appears to have belonged to a woman hunter buried with a toolkit of projectile points and animal processing implements, according to a report in Science magazine. Yeah, I don't really find that too surprising. I mean, if everyone that was capable in the tribe back then was, doing stuff to help out with food and everything, and, yeah, generally, I'm sure women were back in the camp doing other activities, or if they were menstruating or pregnant, it would have been more difficult to go out and hunt and stray away from the camp. But, I mean, there's even all kinds of cases of I think there's some famous Greek female fighters. I can't remember their names, but they were actually pretty skilled warriors. Yeah, so he does. I mean, she might have been just going out and doing some scouting around away from her tribe or something, and had some stuff with her, and went out to do some hunting. I just don't really find it that surprising that women were able to hunt. And who knows? I mean, this implies that she was a hunter, but maybe she died or was killed, and she was given, those items to aid her in the afterlife, so that she would be able to gather food or offer it. Who knows what they were thinking? They were fascinated by a toolkit with 20 stone projectile points and blades lined neatly by the person's side at a burial pit high in the Andes. Both signs led to a high-status hunter's discovery. Everybody was talking about how this was a great chief, a big man. This is archaeologist Randy Haas of the University of California. Then the University of Arizona bioarchaeologist Jim Watson observed that the bones were slender and light. I think your hunter might be female. Now the researchers report that the burial was indeed that of a female, challenging the long-standing man-the-hunter hypothesis. Her existence led them to re-examine reports of other ancient burials in the Americas, and they found 10 additional women buried with projectile points who may also have been hunters. The message of the new finding is that women have always been able to hunt and have in fact hunted. Yeah, I mean, I don't really find that surprising. You're telling me like over 100,000 years, like no woman back in the day ever went hunting. I mean, it might have been like a who knows? Like maybe it was like some sort of couples retreat. You know, like they recently got married and they went off together and did like a like a ceremonial hunt together and did all kinds of stuff. I think a lot of times everyone thinks we understand what happened in the past when I don't think we do. And I also think that humanity is a lot older than people give it credit for. Now the researchers reported that the burial was indeed that of a female. I just read that. Which proved out an influential symposium in Chicago in 1966 held that during the course of human evolution, men hunted and women gathered, and they seldom switched those gender roles. I think just physiologically and biologically, like men are geared more for defense and hunting than I think women are, because they're geared more towards the rearing and bearing of children. So those roles probably had to go in tandem to kind of help each other out and coexist and support one another. But I don't think it's impossible to imagine that women were hunting to some extent. And you ever notice that, in the scientific community, the concept of the scientific method and, staying the course towards data, it's considered the ideal in terms of the process of finding things out regarding science, yet it almost never, I can't say never, but it seems like in every epoch, however you say it, or every era of science, that the establishment science is always trying to countervail the potential changing of that thought. I forget the guy's name, but there was this doctor during, I think it was the 19th century, that he noticed that one thing that was occurring when women were giving birth to children is that people that were delivering the babies were not washing their hands when they went from one person to the next. And they made a big deal about this because this guy was just telling people to wash their hands. And I guess they didn't want to believe that they were, not necessarily knowing, but they were responsible for all these women dying. And so it's like, you should not be attached to what the reality is. You should just allow reality to influence your thoughts and your perspective on things. I don't think you should have an idea or a notion of way something was in the past without evidence or without some sort of objective examining of reality itself. And I think sometimes people get away from that. Yeah, this is pretty cool. It's weird to think that happened that long ago. And I thought this was pretty amazing. Tens of thousands of 12,000-year-old rock paintings found. And how have these not been discovered before? Tens of thousands of Ice Age paintings across a cliff face shed light on people and animals from 12,500 years ago in the Colombian jungle. Archaeologists have found tens of thousands of them. This prehistoric depiction of animals and humans have been discovered adorning cliff faces that stretch for... Probably should have had these open before I started the article, but oh well. For almost 8 miles. 8 miles. On top of that, some depict long extinct Ice Age animals. Archaeologists were shocked to discover numerous human handprints on the site, according to the Daily Mail. Oh, and that reminds me, from that Cave of Forgotten Dreams, one of the people that lived in the cave, I think it was a guy, he had a busted up pinky, and the way they know this is because I guess like a form of art they were doing with, it's probably similar to what we have here, is they were doing handprints all over the cave walls. And they would put their hand against the wall, and I think they would put some sort of paint in their mouth, and they would blow it against their hand to make the handprint splatter across the wall. And this one guy had a busted pinky. He probably broke his pinky in some sort of fall or accident or combat or something. And they were able to use that broken pinky to identify his markings throughout the cave. And I think they could even track probably the difference in terms of obviously the locations, but the age of the paintings as well through carbon dating. But I might be mistaken in that because that was a little while ago when I saw that. But still, really good. It's like the perfect documentary to watch like on a rainy day when you don't really want to go outside, or you need something to watch but you're not sure what to watch. Check out Cave of Forgotten Dreams. It's awesome. Funded by the European Research Council, the British Columbian team had no idea what awaited them in the Shirabika National Park, but is now finally ready to share the remarkable discovery with the world. Pictures of animals such as mastodons and paleolamas, the extinct ancestors of elephants and camels, were perhaps the most exciting. The cliff face art also includes giant sloths and ice age horses, all of which were clearly seen and painted by some of the first humans to ever reach the Amazon. I forget exactly where. It might actually be in Peru. Um, yeah, I think it might be in Peru. Like some people, like the locals, like the natives, there have been sightings of a supposed giant sloth. It's like a cryptozoology type thing. I don't think there's been any conclusive evidence, but there's just been like a wide amount of, or a vast amount of people mentioning that. I'll have to do a video on that and see if there's any more information on it. According to The Guardian, the find has been aptly lauded as the Sistine Chapel of the ancients. Based on the sheer scale and plethora of paintings, experts say it will take generations to properly analyze. Wow. So if it's going to take generations to properly analyze these paintings, imagine how long it took to paint them. While it was uncovered last year, the find was kept secret for a documentary set to air on Britain's Channel 4 in December. When you're there, your emotions flow. We're talking about several tens of thousands of paintings, said lead archaeologist Jose Iriarte, professor of archaeology at Exeter University. It's going to take generations to record them. Every turn you do, it's a new wall of paintings. The site The site is so remote that it took experts a 2-hour drive from Chiribiquet National Park to Serrania de la Lindosa, followed by a 4-hour hike to reach it. After this long journey, the team was awed to discover such extensive paintings. Yeah, I want to hear about the person that just like they probably have in this article, but imagine finding this. Like who decides to go out? Like, did they actually cover this? To discover on the site. Yeah, I guess they probably just stumbled across it. It's probably some native person there found it, and they decided to let someone else know. Regional natives of the Amazon didn't keep written records until fairly recently. With a humid climate and high levels of acid in the soil, nearly every trace of their tangible presence, including human remains, have been lost. Most about the region's history before 1500 has been inferred from ceramics and arrowheads. Most native tribes of the Amazon are believed to have descended from the first prehistoric group of migrants to cross the Bering Land Bridge around 17,000 years ago. The discovery is thus sure to shed unprecedented light on various aspects of their culture. Yeah, they're doing the same thing with the hands. That's pretty cool. It must be like a universal gesture, a universal artistic thought. It's kind of like how so many cultures have bows and arrows, and a lot of them have the wheel. Though some cultures didn't invent the wheel. I guess everybody's kind of thinking, what would be cool is like, this is like the prehistoric, like, I was here using your hand for the paint. We started seeing animals that are now extinct, said Iriarte. The pictures are so natural and so well made that we have few doubts that you're looking at a horse, for example. The Ice Age horse had a wild, heavy face. It's so detailed we can even see the horsehair. It's fascinating. While it's yet unclear exactly which tribe was responsible for the uncovered art, there are some preliminary wagers at hand. Both the Yanomami and Kayapo tribes have been around for thousands of years and appear to be likely candidates. Of course, not everything worth doing is easy, and the region's more hostile factors rapidly made that clear for Iriarte and his team. Ella Al-Shamahi, presenter of the upcoming Channel 4 documentary series Jungle Mystery Lost Kingdoms of the Amazon, spoke about these hidden threats. Caimans are everywhere, and we did our And we did keep our wits about us with the snakes, she said, recalling a giant bushmaster, the deadliest snake in the Americas, with an 80% mortality rate, which the team encountered in the dead of night. You're in the middle of nowhere. Unfortunately, there was another lethal threat abounding in the jungle, not to be taken lightly, the FARC. Colombia suffered decades of civil war between these guerrillas and the government, with a shaky truce and heavy militant presence in the jungles not particularly calming. She kind of looks like a realistic Lara Croft. Fortunately, they allowed the experts entry. When we entered FARC territory, it was exactly as a few of us have been screaming about for a long time, said al-Shamahi. Exploration is not over. Scientific discovery is not over, but the big discoveries now are going to be found in places that are disputed or hostile. It was only last week that evidence of ancient hallucinogenic rituals was uncovered in California. Seems like nothing's changed in California, but it seems these Colombian tribes engage in the same, as paintings of psychoactive plants were also found on the walls. For Amazonian people, non-humans like animals and plants have souls, and they communicate and engage with people in cooperative or hostile ways through rituals and shamanic practices that we see depicted in the rock art, said Iriarte. It's interesting to see that many of these large animals appear surrounded by small men with their arms raised, almost worshipping these animals. For al-Shamahi, one of the more intriguing aspects was the height of some of these illustrations. They were so elevated that they could only be viewed with camera drones, and some depicted wooden towers with figures bungee jumping off of them. Still, the historical context blew her away more than anything. Probably just saw the power flicker. Hopefully I don't lose power as I'm finishing this video up. One of the most fascinating things was seeing Ice Age megafauna, because that's a marker of time. I don't think people realize that Amazon has shifted in the way it looks. It hasn't always been this rainforest. When you look at a horse or mastodon in these paintings, of course, they weren't going to live in a forest. Yeah, that's a good point. The landscapes of the world have changed continuously over thousands of years. They're too big. Not only are they giving clues about when they were painted by some of the earliest people, that in itself is just mind-boggling, but they are also giving clues about what this very spot might have looked like, more savanna-like. Yeah, so I guess they put the recent pandemic. I don't think you can really say the disease without getting flares and stuff. We'll get to see this initial discoveries up close when the documentary series airs its episode on the matter on December 12th. This article is a little old, but yeah, I'm sure it already came out. So yeah, I thought that was pretty fascinating. Well, there you have it. ArchaeologyWorld.com's top 10 discoveries for the past year in 2020. Thanks for checking this video out. Hopefully the audio is better than the previous video. And it's slowly getting there. And yeah, so I think I'm going to end it here. Feel free to like and subscribe. I always talk about random cool topics, archaeology, history, philosophy. Eventually I want to do some stuff about Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius. I was thinking about maybe just reading through his writings and giving my commentary on it. Kind of like what I'm doing with the Some Answered Questions series. Well, until next time, thanks for checking out my channel, and take care.